Hello all, this is just an off-the-cuff video because several survivors of the Grooming Gang scandal have been quitting the inquiry that the Labour Party set up to finally deliver justice to these people. Now, if you know anything about this story, which unfortunately we all do, it's been a cover-up for a long time now. First of all, they told us it wasn't even happening. Then, oh, it's happening, but it's a few allocated incidents. Then, okay, it is happening everywhere, but at no higher rate than within other groups. And then, of course, okay, maybe it is, we'll give you an inquiry at long last to shut you up. But of course now they're trying to basically manipulate what is coming out from this inquiry. Now, I dare say we all expected this, but I wanted to do a video on it. Number one, to give an update on what's going on, but number two, to try and understand how the liberal machine works behind the scenes to try and manufacture narratives for mass consumption. Now, we can get the latest from the BBC, and as you can see, they've used a sympathetic picture of Jess Phillips looking so exhausted because she's such a tireless campaigner for the rights of women and girls, don't you know? Of course, now Jess Phillips is actually in government. It's hard to play the poor old me routine time and time again, especially when it looks like she's engaging in a cover-up herself. But let's get on with the article. A third abuse survivor has resigned from their role in the government's inquiry into grooming gangs. Elizabeth, not her real name, joined Fiona Goddard and Ellie Reynolds, who quit the inquiry's victims and survivors liaison panel on Monday in protest. In a resignation letter, Elizabeth said the process felt like, quote, a cover-up and had created, quote, a toxic environment for survivors. Now, because we're in modern Britain, I have to say all of this is theoretical and I'm just inferring a potential theory from what we're reading here. Of course, I have to say this, so don't have my door knocked in at 3 a.m. and thrown in a gulag by Starmer Stasi. But anyway, what are we supposed to think when they say that there's been a toxic environment that's been created for survivors? Normally, a toxic environment is where you're being manipulated and not allowed to move in any direction. You're punished whatever you do. Now, I don't know about you, but this jogged my memory to when some awful, appalling attack happens, some Islamic attack, or some kid is injured or harmed in some way. And within 24 hours, you have a statement from the family where, they say some sort of implication about how multiculturalism is a good thing and not to blame any groups. And you're always thinking, it's not even 24 hours after. Would a family who's just writhing in pain be so concerned about, political and social harmony? It just always looks a bit suspicious, as if the stormtroopers got to the family first and, along with some lawyers, concocted what to say. Working theory, of course, but we go on with the article. Elizabeth, who is from Rotherham, said she felt the process had been, quote, scripted and predetermined, quote, rather than emerging from honest, open dialogue with survivors. And all of this points towards this being more of a stage-managed propaganda piece than an actual inquiry. And I'm sure the government and the powers that be are aware that many people will suspect this. However, they'll be banking that the masses won't really see any of this coming out. This is a quote from Elizabeth again. This sense of control and stage management has left many of us questioning whether our voices truly matter, or whether we are being used to legitimise decisions that have already been made. Now, a cynic may say that this is all very bad timing for Keir Starmer and his government because they've been on a big offensive recently about British identity. Everybody's British, and if you dare disagree, he's going to go to war with you. His words, not mine. We're the enemy, remember? He's going to throw everything he's got at us. So the last thing he probably wants right now is a national inquiry into the grooming gangs composed of quote-unquote Asian men that shows they were racially and sexually abusing girls up and down the country at industrial scale levels. Not exactly easy to convince the public that Britain is some multicultural utopia and that anybody who disagrees is an evil racist after news like that, is it? The article goes on, stating Miss Goddard and Miss Reynolds had raised concerns about the suitability of the candidates shortlisted to chair the inquiry, arguing they should not have a background in policing or social work. Seems fair enough. Miss Goddard, who was abused by gangs while living in Bradford's children's home, just terrible, isn't it, said these services had contributed most to the cover-up of the national mass rape and trafficking of children. Meanwhile, Miss Reynolds suggested having establishment insiders representing the very systems that failed us as potential chairs was the conflict of interest. As I say, seems completely fair enough. I mean, hypothetically, if you had an inquiry into, I don't know, wrongdoing in Tesco's supermarket, it seems completely ridiculous to have a potential chair an executive of Tesco's supermarket. The article goes on, the three women have accused officials of trying to water down the inquiry by widening the scope beyond grooming gangs into broader issues of child sexual abuse and exploitation. And we've seen this one before, haven't we? They try and redefine terms, they try and put the grooming gangs issue within the broader remit of all sexual abuse and exploitation, thereby pumping up the numbers because Britain is still a majority white country, and therefore it makes it look like the real perpetrators, the real issue, is white British men. So with that working theory in mind, it won't surprise you to read Elizabeth's next statement. Elizabeth said she had seen, quote, selected narratives being promoted, ones that appeared to serve particular agendas, especially around issues of race and the narrative of widening the scope. This concern was corroborated by Miss Reynolds. She was abused by a gang of Pakistani brothers in Barrow, and she said the final turning point in her decision to quit was a move to, quote, widen the inquiry in ways that downplay the racial and religious motivations behind our abuse. I don't think I need to add much analysis on that one. We can all draw our own conclusions there. Safe to say, though, it's probably those bloody toxic white males again. They make me sick, those toxic white British males. So an interesting insight, theoretical as it is, into how things may well be working behind the scenes, and also into how the Labour Party are going to handle this in the future. They clearly want to kick it into the long grass and hope people forget, and there never will be an inquiry. But then that will beg the question, are they truly willing to sacrifice children on the altar of political correctness and the multicultural utopia? Many would say they already have been willing, and they're just showing it again. I personally, of course, couldn't comment. Might have my tongue chopped out. Here is one of the grooming gang victims, though, Ellie Reynolds, offering her point of view and how the inquiry has gone.
I think we all became a little bit fearful to say what ethnicity our abusers were, and it shouldn't be like that. We were trying to say, we've never disputed that there is white paedophiles, there is black paedophiles, but ultimately every time that we mentioned grooming gangs being predominantly Asian men, it was shut down very fast, to the point where, we were very apprehensive to whether we could even mention that. And sometimes it needs to be uncomfortable. Sometimes we need to be able to say the ethnicity of these men because they're who are doing it to us. So, yeah, I believe that caused a whitewash. It was watering down the fact that these active grooming gangs in the UK, and they are predominantly Asian men.
Well, that's all well and good, but we have to think about the multicultural utopia and how the precious and wonderful Labour Party need votes from certain communities in order to remain in power. Anyway, one good thing you could say about this whole mess is these abuse victims have done very well to speak out about the inquiry. I'm sure they're under quite a bit of pressure not to. On final note, the reputation of this Labour government is absolutely on the floor. They're the worst government we've had by far. It's actually worrying what on earth they're going to do next. Anyway, these are my thoughts. Do let me know what you think down below. Do consider subscribing to the channel if you're new.